guest who I'm very excited about, because I get excited about all the guests here, and who has provided this, by the way, and all we revealed is not to do with climate change at all. She'll explain for us in a moment. Welcome, Rachel. Rachel, you're a Didsbury mum and you've got 2 children.
That's right.
But I want you to tell us really your expertise, because I keep getting it wrong. And I keep talking about neuroscience, and Rachel's like, no. And it's actually, you're an expert in neurodiversity.
That's right.
Can you tell us what neurodiversity is?
Yeah, because I don't think everybody here knows. Neurodiversity is a concept that we are all different. So if somebody is particularly different, so they have autism or dyslexia or ADHD or something like that, that is a different way they've developed. So it's not necessarily a disability or something wrong with them, it's just a difference. So they have their unique challenges that they need to overcome. And they also have unique abilities and skills that normal people don't have. We used to use the terms neurotypical to describe normal people and neuro-atypical to describe people who are different, and that can include people who suffer a lot with mental illness as well, yes. Because people with severe mental illnesses they don't process their thoughts and their feelings the same way as everyone else. But the problem with the words neurotypical and neuro-atypical is that they're very, very similar. Mm-hmm. So if you're dyslexic, for example, you don't necessarily know what somebody's talking about. And the idea of neurodiversity as well is that it's not an us and them thing. I personally use the words normal and not normal because they're more accessible, and I think it's just a lot more straightforward.
But do you have to understand what normal is in order to understand that?
Yeah, that's the question. Everyone has their own idea of what normal is and what not normal is.
Yes.
So, the way I work is just to say, what's normal about you. So say, for example, making a phone call. Most people can make a phone call, right? Mm. If you can't make a phone call for some reason, you could be deaf, you might not know how to use a phone for whatever reason, you might have anxiety about making phone calls. That would make you not normal in that situation. But all of those things can make you, they can give you other skills as well, or other abilities that normal people don't have.
Oh, interesting. Now, let's kind of start from the beginning. You sound a bit like me. You're not from Manchester. I know. Yeah. So how did you end up in Didsbury, if I may say so?
Well, my boyfriend at the time moved to Didsbury. I'm from Surrey originally, but I was living in Warwickshire at the time. And he moved to Didsbury and said, come and live with me. So I said, all right. and then we got married. And had our kids, so it was worth the move.
Absolutely, and he's in the audience actually.
Yeah,
so
hello.
And you ended up staying.
That's right.
We have a lot of younger viewers from home, and we like to talk a bit about careers and how people ended up in their careers in a natural way. So, did you study neurodiversity at university? What did you study when you came here? Firstly, did you go to university?
Yes, I did, a long time ago. No, I studied English at university, and then I had a bit of a hodgepodge career. I worked as an editor in New York for a time. Then I worked for an advertising agency in Leeds, which is where I met my husband. And then I gave up having a proper job 14 years ago and started my own business advising people on career breaks, which are like gap years for adults, people going abroad, travelling, volunteering, teaching, that sort of thing. And then the neurodiversity thing came. I only started last year, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
Because I've run a business for 14 years with undiagnosed ADHD. Wow. So I've developed so many tools and strategies and things to get, just to get me through the day and to get me functioning like a normal business person. Because obviously, without a proper job, when you're self-employed, you don't have that external discipline. And for people with ADHD, it's virtually impossible to function unless you've got something else, or a lot of other things in my case, to help you through that.
Yes.
And when I was doing all this stuff for myself, and I thought I could be sharing this with other people, particularly adults who've never been diagnosed with ADHD or have only been diagnosed recently, like me. And mentally ill people as well.
Yes.
Because, do you want me to talk about that now?
Yeah, because we always ask personal questions on, I want to say show, it's not a show, but at this gathering, and we've shared many things in this room, tears and so on, but so it would be really good for us to hear that, and how did you know that you had ADHD, and then how did you come to be diagnosed with it?
Well, there started to be more things written about ADHD, and I started reading more about it, especially in America, where the acceptance and the understanding of ADHD is quite a long way ahead of where we are in the UK. There's actually two types of ADHD. So type 1 is the one you're all familiar with. It's a little boy jumping about in the classroom who won't sit still.
Yeah.
That's not the kind I have, sitting here now.
I know, you've got to jump once.
I've got type 2, which is inattentive. So that's the daydreamer. I do a lot of staring out the window. So, in class I was always getting in trouble because I couldn't follow instructions because I wasn't listening, and I didn't even realise that I wasn't listening. So it's always been there, and I got better at coping with it. And then I actually had an ADHD coach in America because I thought, I can't do this all by myself. I need someone to help me. So I got an incredibly expensive coach who was really, really good. And the first session I sat down and I said, this is, she said, what were you like at university? And I was like, last minute, and you're like, everyone's last minute at university. And I was like, no, I mean really last minute. And we talked about various challenges I had, and she said, it's obvious that's what you have. And she has ADHD too. So sometimes getting to the Skype meeting at the same time was a challenge, as you can imagine. And there are a lot of people now with ADHD working as coaches, and we understand people's challenges, but also our clients have to understand us as well, because we're always late, quite often disorganised with some things. Sometimes we can be organised, but sometimes we're also very disorganised, and part of that is learning not just to accept your own limitations or challenges, but also starting to accept those of other people.
I'm wondering, because I'm always late. And I put that down to sort of black tie, which is a generalisation. Not to offend anybody. But, I mean, you didn't start off by thinking, well, I'm always really late and therefore, did you? You must have looked at the other factors that you were talking about.
Yeah, half of people with ADHD also suffer from depression and anxiety, which I have done for a long time. So I said running a business with ADHD is almost impossible. Running it with severe mental illness is even more almost impossible. Absolutely. Some days you just can't get out of bed. So, some days I just take my laptop to bed. Yeah. So it was challenging.
Can I ask you then about when you had children? How did you cope then? Because of course having children brings other new impacts on one's life and disruption, both positive and negatively. Did that improve how you felt?
It went up and down a bit because I had postnatal depression twice. The first time it lasted 3 months. The second time it lasted 3 years.
Oh.
My kid's 4. So it's, till very recently, in fact. So that was obviously a downside, but one of the positives about having a mental illness or other challenges when you've got kids is that you're doing stuff for somebody else now. Because if it's you can just say, I'm not doing it, I'm staying in bed, I'm not going to look after myself, everything will go to hell, and it doesn't matter. When you've got a kid, you've got to get them to school, you've got to keep them clean, you've got to keep them fed. You have to do all this stuff because it's not about you anymore. And I think that can be really, really helpful. It can be a challenge, but it can be helpful at the same time.
Yeah. And so as a coach, it's really good to just be able to sort of relate to the people that you're coaching. I work with a lot of different sorts of people. So I do have a number of clients with ADHD. I work with people with autism, and I also work with people who are normal, but they might have their own challenges. So a lot of parents, with a job, and sometimes I work with people with 2 jobs. They have a day job and then they've got a side hustle as well. Yeah. And planning and organising that is a challenge. And you can use tools that I've developed to cope with ADHD or autism to manage those other things as well. Just being overwhelmed and just being tired is a big one. I have people come to me and say, I'm tired. And I go, well, okay, first of all, get some sleep and stop surviving on Twixes. And then, once we've sorted that out, we can look at what you do on a day when you don't have enough energy
to function. And that's partly what the permission slips are about.
Yes, I want to come to these because they are so good. Can you just talk? Have you all got one of these? Excellent. Maybe you could just talk us through, because I love that.
So this is a permission slip. I didn't come up with this idea myself. I was given this idea by someone called Zoe from Care Labels for Humans. And the idea is to give yourself permission to do something, because a lot of us, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, to get everything done, to make the house tidy, to do all this stuff. So this permission slip is for you to formally give yourself permission to get a takeaway for dinner, or give the kids cereal for tea, or just not do the washing up and go and watch telly instead. And I think a lot of people need these.
Yeah. Actually, people can complete it so that we can see what they were giving them. If they want to share it, that is. Not take away, because my husband's in the audience and that would be a permanent thing. if it was. But that's a really good idea. So is that quite good practice? Maybe, I don't know, once a week, if people are feeling, whether it's just depression or the other conditions, whether it's anxiety, to do that? Or would you say just whenever you feel like it?
It depends a lot on the person. I don't do one-size-fits-all approaches. In fact, one of the reasons I started doing the coaching and consultancy as well is because so much business advice is do this, do that, do whatever. Yeah. And I try and see people as, individuals with very different sorts of challenges. So when they take the permission slip, I might have one client who goes, yeah, I'm going to do that all the time, I'm going to do it every day. And I might have another client who says, this is stupid. Which is fine, because some things are stupid for some people, and chuck it in the bin, and they might not need it. So it just depends on how people feel, what they feel is going to be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you about the community question and then the £1 million, and then I'll move on to another question. So what does community mean to you? Whether it's Didsbury or whether it's, your own little street or the community that you serve. What does community mean to you?
I think living in Didsbury and in the community that we're in, we've talked before tonight about diversity, which is great, but I think there's also a certain nice liberalism around here where you can sort of do what you want and wear what you like and sort of be yourself, and people will take you for who you are. And as somebody who's been treated as different because of my various conditions, I find that quite rewarding. And I think it's quite it's been nice for me to sort of learn from that, because obviously from down south it was quite different where I grew up.
Yes.
And taking people for what they are and being welcoming and open with people has been really educational for me, actually.
Yeah. And then I suppose acceptance as well, just whatever goes.
Yeah,
that's really good. So what would you spend £1 million on in a philanthropic way?
Well, I really like the idea of a youth centre, because I think if a lot of the problems that we have in our society, they could be avoided if we just tackled some of the issues that people face when they're kids. Yeah. Because I know from experience, it's so much harder to deal with stuff when you're a grown-up, when you could have dealt with it when you were a kid. So I like the idea of a sort of kind of a hippie community centre where kids learn about mindfulness and about philosophy, about learning to think for themselves and so on. I mentioned I worked in the Bronx in New York at a...
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I worked in a youth centre there, and it was a very deprived area. And part of the point of having that centre was a sense of community for people who don't feel like they belong anywhere else. Because one of the reasons that young people join gangs is because they don't have the family unit that they need, or they don't have the community. Yeah. So it's about finding that community, and it's also about giving kids the potential, because a lot of people, it's not just about education, it's about the idea that certain people from certain backgrounds don't do things. So there could be a kid who's in a deprived area who might be an amazing violinist, but no one's ever stuck a violin in his hands. Or there might be a guy who'd make a brilliant nurse, but men don't do nursing. So I think it would be great to have somewhere where people could really be encouraged to try things out and reach their potential and feel like they belong somewhere.
Yeah, so it's so important, that sense of belonging. I suppose that's kind of what we're trying to create here, isn't it? Having a community that we live in that appreciates all. So if anybody can provide us with £1 million, that would be great. But I think that's so important. That's really so important. Can I ask you, when you were working in New York, how that was? Because as an English person over there, how did that transpire? And how were you received there?
I'm half American, so I'm an American citizen, so I didn't have to, get a visa or anything like that. I just moved over there after I left university because I fancied a change. Yeah. That's partly an ADHD thing.
Oh, right.
People with ADHD are always looking for something new and wanting a new challenge, so I was just like, yeah, I'll move to New York, why not? It was good, it was fun, it was interesting.
And did you have a job to go to?
No, but my auntie lived there, so she got me a job.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So what would you have done if that wasn't the case?
Oh,
would you still have gone?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I might have done something else, but I'd always wanted to live in America because as a kid I'd gone there to visit family. And you know what it's like when you're on holiday. You're visiting your grandparents who spoil you and everything. So I just wanted to go and experience what it would be like to live there.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if you could share with us a quote, which we'll come to in a moment, but any books that inspire you, and who inspires you, really?
It's kind of outdated now, but I really like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because of my difficulties relating to people and connecting to people, I'm not very good at, being friendly. Some people here will testify. I find
You're friendly to me, but I'm probably quite full on.
You're quite friendly, so I don't have to, it's all coming from you. It's not. You make it much easier for me. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but I find that learning those sorts of things intellectually, most people learn them socially, so you just sort of pick things up, and I can't really do that. So learning that kind of sort of social rules and social cues and how to be around people, learning that intellectually was a really, really useful for me.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's great book. And what about quotes?
I'm going to try and remember this.
I do, I can find it on my phone. It's such a great quote. You try to remember it and I'll find it.
This is from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He says, "For though your faith is not mine, and my faith is not yours, if we are each free to light a flame, together we can banish some of the darkness of the world."
Yeah, that's so powerful. Can we just have a round of applause for that? And remembering it as well, because I couldn't remember.
Do you know what? That's one of the advantages to having ADHD, which people think you can't remember anything, but if you're told to remember a quote, you can hyper-focus and do it straight away. I did it in the toilet before I came on.
Oh,
I can remember things that quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, which is why I keep telling people having ADHD is not necessarily a problem. It also has a lot of advantages. When somebody asks you to remember a quote.
That is so awesome. So how can we as a society, and in Didsbury just locally, how can we help you or somebody who's got ADHD, type 2 or anxiety? What practical things can we do? I know I say morning to everyone, I think I'm quite open, my body language is open, but what can the rest of us do in the audience really, or and around here that would help people with, and maybe you?
Okay, well, I do talks about accessibility as well, the broad way of including everybody, whether it's at work or socially or whatever. And one of the things I point out to people is that you might not know somebody has a problem, because a lot of people don't talk about it, especially mental illness. So for a long time, nobody around here knew that I was mad as a box of frogs. So the first thing is to be aware that if someone's off with you, you've got no idea what's going on in their life. And the second thing is, sometimes the most accessible thing you can do is nothing. Just treat them as normal as you have with me. And I've just told you how helpful it's been, how you've been friendly with me, and that's helped me. And I think taking people as they are, and if somebody does disclose something to you which they might not have told everybody, just to not be weird about it. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice, because I've had a lot of people be weird about my weirdness, and it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
And it's fine to ask questions about it and know a little bit more, but there have been people I've spoken to who they just won't engage with it, which is fine. Not everybody can do that, but if you want to, help people in your community, just being sort of open and accepting and understanding as well, I think. Because we all have a lot going on, don't we? Yeah. So even the most normal of us, that we might be knackered one day and we don't want to make small talk at the gate. So just letting people do their own thing and being supportive when you can.
Can we just have a round of applause? I've got loads more questions, but I don't know where we are with the time. Sarah, time check? Always good. Can I open this up? Are you happy to take questions that people have got? Can I open it up to the room and the floor, not to be weird about anything, and ask Rachel the question?
I've got a question.
Can you say your name so you all know?
So I'm Rose Kay, and I've got an autistic daughter. So our daughter is autistic, and it strikes me that you're filling a massive, massive gap that exists for adult people, like you say, who are diverse, not normal, or whatever we're going to call it. And I just wondered, how do people access you? Because if you get help when you're young at CAMS, and then you get discharged at 18, and there's very, very little in Manchester to help people do the sort of thing you're talking about. So how do people access you? How do they get to know about you? You could be inundated.
So the question is, how do people get a hold of me? I think my website is on...
It's on our Facebook page, and we'll share it if you sign our form. We haven't got one.
I've actually got my website, which is sparkleclass.com.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. That was it. Right.
Yeah, it's teaching people how to sparkle. So it's on the bottom of the permission slips, but I can give you my card as well, so you've got my email address.
Yeah. But I think it is really great because there is an awful lot of isolation for adults who are in your position, and if they don't know about it, it would be very useful for GPs to know about it and to get that information out. Because my daughter has many times said, please can I access somebody who can help me, and we didn't know who to access, so it's brilliant.
I'm talking to somebody at the National Institute of Clinical Excellence next week, and I've got a couple of people to speak to in the NHS as well.
Brilliant.
As well as workplaces, to help workplaces be more inclusive. And it's not just about being inclusive though, it's about using your talents that your daughter will have because she's autistic, and making the most of those as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I will send you an email.
Brilliant. Power of DidsburyFM.
Yeah, absolutely.
Over there, John, please.
I think over the last 25 years, most of the people I've come across with the most complex problems that need solving tend to have had an undiagnosed condition of some description. Is there something that you think could be done more with people at a younger age to actually discover people's differences? Or is it the case that a lot of the time people's conditions are not actually presenting themselves until older age, because they live in a more confined and organised environment as a child?
I've never met anyone where they've had an okay childhood with a condition and then it's become a problem when they've grown up. It's always been a problem right from when they were a kid, but it's not necessarily been picked up, especially for people who are high functioning like me, and especially for women as well, particularly female autistics and particularly women with ADHD. So your question was, how can we pick up these problems with children sooner? And this is a bit of a tough one actually. It takes one to know one. So because I have ADHD, I can recognise someone else with ADHD at 100 yards, and there's somebody here who I said, I think your kid's got ADHD, and he has now been diagnosed. But she had mentioned it first. So it's really hard if you have a condition or you think someone's kid has got something wrong with them, even though we know it's not wrong. But other people are quite resistant to the idea because of our society. These things are all wrong. There's something wrong with your kid. your kid has special needs, blah, blah. It's always presented as a problem. I think if we start looking at it not as a problem, but my ADHD, in fact, the coach,
Yeah.
my ADHD coach refers to it as a superpower, having ADHD. So if we stop looking at it as a problem, then we can start to help the kids. And I think it's really the parents who, if you notice something off about your kid, it doesn't matter what it is, but if you notice they're not like other kids in some way, and you start talking to that kid, and you know, it's not impossible to go to the GP, and then it might turn out they're fine, they're just a bit different. But at least you would know either way. And thank you for good questions.
Yeah. Now here's a politician. Sorry.
And it's not related to what you're talking about, but just something that you did, it was probably over a year ago now, which I thought it would be really nice if you